Good evening, everyone. We're going to get started. I think we have a couple more of our colleagues who are going to be joining us, but we've got a packed house, so we want to kick things off. We're very excited to see the amazing turnout for this evening's workshop, and excited to hear all the voices of folks from across our city who came to share stories and concerns and ideas about how we can improve our school system and how our schools treat and serve some of the most vulnerable folks in our city. I'm going to start by reading the notice, then we'll have my colleagues introduce themselves. Then we're going to start with a presentation from New Haven Public Schools, and then we will have a presentation from the New Haven LGBTQ Youth Task Force, and then we will have a public testimony. If you'd like to testify, we have sign-up sheets that should be over there. And every speaker will have 3 minutes, so make sure to go sign up, and we look forward to hearing from you, and hopefully as many of you will stick around to just to speak out as possible. So starting with the notice. The Board of Alders notice, New Haven. The Education Committee of the Board of Alders will meet in person on Wednesday, November 29th, 2023 at 6 p.m. in the Board of Alders chamber located at 165 Church Street, 2nd floor, New Haven, Connecticut, to hold the following workshop. Workshop with the New Haven Board of Alders with New Haven Public Schools regarding student mental health, bullying, overall school climate, and policies to support LGBTQ students. Per order, Honorable Eli Sabin, Chair. Attest, Honorable Michael Smart, City Town Clerk. For accessibility-related accommodations, please call 203-946-7651 or 203-946-8582. Public comment or testimony may also be submitted via email to publictestimony@newhavenct.gov before 2 p.m. on the day of the meeting. This meeting may be viewed on the New Haven Board of Alders YouTube page. I'm Eli Sabin. I represent Ward 7 on the Board of Alders and have the privilege of chairing the Education Committee. I'll now have my Vice Chair, introduce himself.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Vice Chair Jose Crespo, older for Ward 16, the Fairhaven area.
Heather Ferreira, Ward 9.
Amy Marks, Ward 26.
Sal Punzo, Ward 17.
Sarah Miller, Ward 14.
Linda Smith, Ward 30.
Thank you, colleagues. So now we're going to start with a presentation from the Newton Public School District, if representatives of the district want to come forward.
We'll take one of y'all out. I'm sorry.
I know you've all been here before, but if you could start by saying your names and addresses for the record, we would appreciate it.
Let me start, Joanna.
Okay.
Johanna Sandberg Champion, 24 West Elm Street, New Haven, Connecticut.
Tiffany Jackson, 938 Wintergreen Avenue, Camden, Connecticut.
Michael Finley, 11 West Walk, West Haven, Connecticut.
Natalie Shaheen, 375 Monticello Drive, Branford, Connecticut.
Thank you.
Monica Abbott, 40 Cortina Road, East Haven, Connecticut.
Great. And do you think maybe you could shift that, just angle that just a little bit so more folks can There we go. Thank you. Perfect. All right, please proceed.
Well, good evening. Good evening, everyone. First and foremost, I want to say thank you for the invitation to this work session to discuss our students. What I want to say is that first and foremost, we're here for collaboration and active listening. Dr. Negron, she's not able to be with us today, but she sends her best regards. If she was here today, I think she would say that we can't do this work alone. It takes true collaboration, and it takes active listening for us to be on the same page to create the best conditions for our students and our families. So with that being said, I'm going to the presentation. Promoting inclusive environments. So this is our strategic plan blueprint. As you can see, it has our core values, our priorities, our vision, and our mission included on this particular page. This grounds our work. This is the last year of this strategic plan. So we'll be working to create a new strategic plan with the leadership of Dr. Negron and the collaboration of stakeholders. Promoting inclusive environments in New Haven public schools, we are committed to providing safe, supportive, welcoming, and inclusive environments in New Haven public schools. We do this through increasing awareness, building capacity, providing safe spaces, and consulting with various stakeholder groups. Via our data, stakeholder feedback, we understand that we have to have essential supports in place for our LGBTQ+ students. It's extremely important to us.
And as we are talking about promoting inclusive environments, I want to say there are some key factors that help to support this. And where we start is really looking at the school buildings and looking at the culture and climate within the school buildings. What does it show us? What does it demonstrate when people are walking through our doors? So what we want is we really want welcoming buildings where people feel like they're included and when they enter the building, that they feel safe. So we do this with different activities within the classrooms, presentations. We also make sure that we have social emotional learning throughout the school building. And through our social emotional learning programs, we make sure that skills to support students in the areas of self-awareness and social awareness are very important, because those help to understand diverse populations of people and really understand yourself. So really, as we are incorporating social emotional learning within our classrooms, it's really promoting these skills within our youngsters. I also just want to touch base a little bit on, as you see here, we do have some mental health professionals within our building, our school counselors, our school social workers, and our school psychologists that really help support all of our students within our buildings as well.
I'll be speaking from the health education perspective as a health education teacher in the city of New Haven. The 2 bullet points that I wanted to focus on is adopting and affirming students' rights to be free from harassment and discrimination, as well as universal practices to include affirming and inclusive language. And this is extremely important because, as mentioned earlier, our goal is to create a support environment for our LGBTQ students, which will help improve overall educational outcomes, and not just for those students, but for all students. And so we want to make sure that our focus is on awareness. And as educators, we want all of our educators in the district to have the resources, the training, and the support to help our LGBTQ+ students and be confident in doing so that we can promote a positive, inclusive environment.
And if I could touch base one more time about the mental health staff that works in our buildings, all New Haven public school buildings have school counselors, social workers, and psychologists within them. They support students by giving classroom presentations. They also do small group and individual counseling. They work with all students within the building. They're there for crisis counseling. So they really help to support the entire community of the school.
So as both Natalie and Johanna talked about creating and promoting inclusive environments and welcoming environments for all students, we know that there's factors that are really critical for students within the LGBTQ plus community. So as we're talking about it, I just want to talk about it in kind of a multifaceted way and some of the things that we have done, and then we'll talk afterwards about some things that we feel that need to happen next. And certainly, as we're going through the list, even since the inception of the transgender non-conforming youth policy, we know there's still some more things that have to happen, as Dr. Finley says, hopefully that we're all working together to make sure that we're providing the best environments for our students. So again, really looking at this from a point of view of capacity building, looking at direct services that we provide, looking at the inclusive spaces that we have, and then also looking at stakeholder input to hold us accountable towards some of that work. And since that time, just to highlight, and this is not an exhaustive list, but really just to highlight some of the things that have happened since that time, we have unpacked the policy for our administrators. We've also provided with a guidance document to support the policies. So that's not just a policy, but it's something that actually gives some additional guidance. We've also created PowerPoint presentations so that our administrators can also deliver some information to our staff as well. We've made a huge investment in mental health first aid training. Again, making sure that our staff are trained and really making sure that we understand outside of just the counseling staff that we have, but all of our staff in general, whether it's security, paraprofessionals, really building up the capacity for us to really be able to understand any signs and symptoms of anyone who may be managing a mental health issue. So again, really making sure that we are building the capacity of all of our educators to be able to support our students. The other investment, really looking at training in Title IX, looking at bullying prevention and also in Title IX, and making sure that we also, as administrators and also as staff, understand the concerns and issues and understand the laws and the protections around students. And really making sure that if there's any kind of discrimination or any act of bullying, that we make sure that people understand what's the process and what needs to happen next. The other thing really in the category of direct services, as I mentioned before, as Johanna has mentioned, we do have a lot of, I won't say a lot because we always need more, but we do have counseling staff in our buildings and partner with a lot of community agencies enough to be able to support our students. So one of the things that we do have, we know that right now, we continue to look at the GSAs that we have, even in our high schools, really looking at how we're going to be promoting some of that. And as a part of the next step, and I want to talk about it here as well, really looking at how we promote GSAs in the middle school as well in partnership with some of our community providers, really looking at bullying prevention, There's already been an effort with doing some bullying prevention work with middle school students and continue to work on those things. We are happy to say that as far as the inclusive spaces are concerned, 82% of our high schools have all gender bathrooms. I will tell you, one of the things that we do need to work on, even as it relates to counseling support, is how we promote some of the things that we have in the schools so that students and parents are aware. And we recognize that's a piece of things that we have, right? Because there may be some students like, you have an all-gender bathroom, but really, how do we promote those things? How do we have proper signage? How do we make sure that we're ensuring that everyone is aware of the things that we have that are in place? Again, really looking at pride events across the schools. We even, as a part of the our SEL team, as we're delivering information, it's not an add-on. We make sure that information that's affirming is included in the materials and information that we share out in the district as well. And then, again, as far as the stakeholder input, we know right now we have input from surveys, and that those surveys don't look good. Right? The surveys talk about the fact that our students don't feel connected. And really, what is it that we continue to do enough to be able to manage? And then we have 51% of the students who really didn't know what we have, in place. So that's why I said it's not even just making sure that we are promoting more affirming communities. We also have to make sure that we also think about how we message what we do have. So those are pieces of some of the things that we're looking towards. And then last but not least, I actually shouldn't say last but not least because there's another slide after this. Really looking at some next steps, and you can see I just put some timelines next to some of the things that you'll see here. One of the things that we think is important, even though for the transgender non-conforming youth policy, 2 years in a row, we spent time with administrators going through that policy. We feel that that should be a yearly information sharing, that we have to continue to do that. We also believe that we need some safe environments when, in our schools, making sure that some of the training that we've done, and I forgot to mention this in the last slide, that we've also done training across 20 of our schools for our whole staff, really looking at how we're looking at safe spaces and making sure that we're using proper language and making sure that we're addressing the needs of LGBTQ youth. The other thing that we want to make sure that we're looking at is this notion of, even as we're looking at promoting GSAs in middle schools, one of the things that we have is that there's monthly sharing of information through what we call an SEL mental health resource, and making sure that we're sending that information out on a very regular basis so that we're also in partnership of making sure that we're promoting, even at the middle school, the notion of GSAs. We do believe, and research shows that GSAs are supporting for our students, but again, above and beyond that, one of the things that we're also looking to do is making sure that we have identified persons at each school to provide some additional training, making sure that those persons, again, are people who, if there's questions, if there's concerns, that people understand who are the folks who are receiving the advanced training, and also making sure that those persons are receiving proper training. Really the use of signage, I think those are things that we can also look at and do a little bit better. Certainly, as we mentioned, we have 82% of the high schools who do have all neutral bathrooms. Again, one of the things that I think we do need to do as a next step is making sure that those things are properly signed and properly acknowledged so that people understand, or parents and students alike understand and know who those are. And then again, making sure that even as we're looking at the climate survey, that we're utilizing the climate survey, for ourselves, and making sure that we understand that we're using that to be able to move forward. We've done some focus groups. So outside of, to get another data point above and beyond just the information in the survey, we've started some focus groups. Not a big number, but we're continuing to try to push. We've done some focus groups with staff and with students to be able to get some other information, and then really looking at how are we doing that with parents so that we're not dictating what it is as a district that we feel is important, but that we're also hearing the voices of students, staff, and parents enough to be able to help shape the work and work in partnership, as Dr. Finley talked about. And then the other thing I just wanted to share with you which is on the next slide. This is something, and of course, we want to make sure that we're talking with our partners, but I just want to show you a snippet of some of the other things that are to come that's kind of already hot out in the press ready to go. There's an LGBTQ webpage with resources, but certainly we want to make sure that this goes through a few hands before we're actually making it live. So again, with that, I thank you for your time, and I'm sure questions will come, so thank you.
Oh, sure, yeah. I maybe we should have to go on this.
Thank you very much for the presentation. We appreciate it. We'll see if there are any questions from the committee. Over
Like to combine my question with something else. Thank you for your presentation. There's a lot of information that you provided. And I have to say that this is the first time that we have to make this subject a subject that was not being paid too much attention in all this time. So, but I also want to make sure that all the effort into the study, that focus group that we are talking about, we are not only for the LGTB, but I strongly would like to report is for all harassment and everything bullying that is all around the areas, not only in sex, how you look at it, and all the kind of things that need to be included. The mental health is extremely important because it affects the development of the kid and the family. And my question, same question, I say, you have safety places, they have counselor, social workers, in the school. Where is the information, how that kids know about it, they are available to them?
Right, so as far as the social work is concerned, and this is the reason why Alder, even I meant about us really making sure that we're doing our due diligence to increase awareness, because we've even heard, even from some of our students, even within our citywide student councils at times, that that we don't know about the mental health supports and people are not making themselves available. We do know that in some regards, in some places, we've seen people, utilizing QR codes and things of that sort enough to be able to give some access, but that's something that, again, we're working with our own teams to make sure that we're really doing our due diligence to make sure that people understand, what is it that we're doing. And also looking at, and Ms. Sandberg is actually a part of this, is really looking at in our schools, how we make ourselves a little more visible so that people understand, what is the work. So certainly more, work to come on that, or more information to come, but certainly right now our students, I think that, there are varying degrees across schools and how folks promoting themselves as far as some of the services that are provided, but I think there's more work to be done there.
Yeah, and the same question that is, I just want to strongly encourage you that don't try to reduce the will, because when I was assistant in that community meetings that they put it together, it really broke my heart how young ladies, they had to spend their weekends advertising for themselves and share their pain and how we're out of the place. This is not acceptable. They should be playing, having fun, or with the friends. And when you do a lot of this research, please and strongly suggest to you work with the community, work with those communities, inviting them, making it happen, because they had tons of information studying and they were working really hard. So with that being said, can you have the proposal? For the and that when you say promoting services, then for our community, one of the questions I always have from the community for kids, not only LGBTs, what about that can be a good idea to have like something like a one number to say something, but they are afraid to commit somebody else and somebody get go against them. Fast or something, make people aware how it's happening to the witnesses. And then afraid to retaliation. I want to look into that. If this is young people, they are afraid to do. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Was there a question there, or just? Thank you, O'Hara. Questions, members of the committee?
Thank you very much for the presentation. I didn't know that one. I'm going to talk a little bit about how this so obviously, is there an effort to put LGBTQ character, to use material that include LGBTQ characters to talk about this issue in history and social studies, even in all the subjects, literature. What does that look like? Maybe you guys are people to answer that, but I have any sense of how this is being integrated into what kids are actually being taught. First to know.
I'll make sure that we know that. And oh, do you want to answer?
No, I'm taking
I don't want to go over. Let's take a little. Go ahead.
Currently, right now, our department is actively updating the health curriculum. We're looking to match it with the new curriculum that came out in 2022. And so we're going to be updating it to a skills-based program so that we're going to be able to incorporate a lot of the inclusive material into the new health curriculum. So the language, like I spoke to before, we're looking to have more inclusive language in the curriculum.
Okay, great, thank you. For you, Mr. Chair, I think it'd be great if we could learn a little bit more in terms of the curriculum, what kids are doing. And then one more question, if I may. You mentioned middle schools and high schools, and I remember my children's own preschool teacher was in some training where exposed to different kinds of families. And she was so excited, and she printed all the stuff out and hung it over the classroom. This is preschool. And I think they used to go around and talk about the mom, the dad, and she was like, and the mom, but change the song for the kids. And I'm wondering what kinds of initiatives are happening during preschool and elementary school to just talk about various kinds of families and various kinds of
I don't want to talk out of turn because I wouldn't be able to answer that information. Certainly, as I mentioned before, our goal is to make sure that we're inclusive, just as Lady has mentioned earlier, really looking at how we're looking at that across the board, right? How are we inclusive across the board? I don't want to speak out of turn because I couldn't tell you right now of an initiative per se.
it was powerful to me to see her own transformation.
Absolutely.
And also to see how easily the kids just embraced it when it was natural and
Thank you, Umbrella. We'll definitely make sure to follow up on that and get some more information after the meeting. Other questions from colleagues?
Thank you. Just want to say, there's a clarification and a question. And they said there is a bullying prevention and a survey. When surveys were done, in the bullying preventions, in what grades? High school or what level or all levels of school?
I don't want to misspeak as far as the survey is concerned. I want to say 612, but I can ask one of the folks. 612? 612? Oh, thank you. I was right. Thank you for the help in the audience. But yes, 612.
They were done in this year? Spring? And that bullying prevention, what does that mean? What is?
So it's really our efforts to really prevent bullying in the school. I know I'm not really doing a good job in explaining that, but really, it's really how do we ensure that our students are being kind to one another? How are we making sure that we are making sure that we're inclusive? That again, free of discrimination. Those are the kinds of things, and really making sure that we are talking to our students about those kinds of things of how we, how we're nice. Just as you mentioned, an example about understanding differences, those kinds of things. It's more really talking to children about, really understanding other children, how to be nice, how to make sure that we're getting along with peers. Those are all the kinds of things that we talk about enough to be able to prevent bullying.
At that point, that's exactly what I mean. Where is the system that something can say, I saw this, but I'm not ready to come forward.
Mm-hmm.
That is exactly the same prevention. Don't wait until the house. Verify. Thank you.
Thank things up here on the first one.
Hey, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to ask, given the 82% of schools being all gender, or 80% of schools having.
High schools,
That's-
just high schools.
What's your strategy to get to 100% and this span of time that you're looking to get there?
Yeah, so at this time, we're doing a complete assessment of all of our resources. Dr. Brown is looking at all of our resources that we have, to be able to, plan, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to do strategic plan for her first months on the job. She's assessing everything, to be able to get what that would look like. And not just our location. Because it's going to definitely be strategic and intentional about how we move. So that will be, I can't give you like a date or like how many schools, at this time until she goes through the process.
Right.
And the process.
Also, I was going to say, and also for the schools who don't have all the factors, we certainly have already talked with those principals. Even so, even with our new adult education building, that's already built into the plans. So again, really making sure that at the forefront that we're inclusive, making sure that we consider it.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Any questions from members? I have a question. You mentioned GSAs earlier, which I think can be a really valuable resource for kids. And people feel welcome at home and they have support network around them. And I was wondering if you have any numbers, I guess, about which schools and how many, what grade levels there are GSAs, and also plans for expanding them and maybe barriers that you see, whether it's funding, staffing, participation, things like that.
Right now, and I don't quote me on this, but we recently did some a survey and we had responses from 11 folks. So I don't have the actual schools that are in front of me. At the high school, primarily at the high school, and one middle school at this point. Again, we believe in, and we know that we're certainly looking at how we are promoting even in the middle school, and we agree we are continuing to also do that. I don't necessarily see any barriers, at least that I haven't opinion. Just really making sure we continue to push and continue to the priority. We have heard of the culture and part of what we do. So I think those are the things that we really are continuing to push. You're welcome.
I guess one other question, you mentioned numbers around how LGBTQ plus students our districts are feeling and their emotional wellness and mental health is lower average than other students. So I was wondering if you view that as a crisis and how the district is making sure that in all the decision making that's going on, we're centering and focusing on that challenge, making sure that our students are in our schools.
I definitely think that the mention of culture and climate, as you mentioned, that's why we started. We think that those are places where we know in schools that we have to make sure that we're doing our due diligence and how critical it is students within our LGBT community. So if I were parents or crisis, I would say education in general. But those are things that I definitely think about. I mentioned to you before, the investment in looking at mental health, first aid training, beyond the scope of our counseling staff is something that we really are taking serious because we understand that there are students who are really struggling. And we want to make sure that more than just our counseling staff, we're able to these, understand how to be able to get some help. So definitely in crisis, I think it's that word in itself can be relative. What I would definitely say is there's a sense of urgency. Absolutely.
I appreciate it. So unless there are any other questions from the committee, I think I will thank you for the presentation, for answering our questions. And we'll follow up with you about issues that we have questions about still. And, as I said before, we're here as much to hear from the community and as the district, and we hope that you'll all stick around for a while to hear some voices from our students and parents. Thank you. maybe while you're stepping back while we're thank you.
Just to check the all the information, all the information, all the important, the students, make sure that all of these services, the communication, the parents. They.
Any other?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we're a presentation from the New Haven LGBTQ Youth Task Force. I believe that we have, I believe it, Aaron will be presenter. And a reminder for anybody who came in late, we will be going to public testimony after this. If you haven't already signed up to speak, there should be a sheet over there. That you can sign up for as well. Hear your testimony. Looks like we have Alder-elect Caroline Smith helping with.
Everyone needs slide support. Thank you, Caroline, for being that person.
I'm here.
Thank you for being here. Please proceed with the presentation. If you could, your name now is correct. So.
Yes. My name is Dave Weiner. I live at 51 Perkins Street in Fairhaven.
My name is Erin Sharman, pronouns she, they. I live at 12 Pond Road in Italy.
You'll notice on the first slide of our presentation that Hannah Higginson's name is here. She is not present tonight. She's not able to be with us, and so I'm standing in for her. She is an educator at New Haven Academy, and we love working with her. My name is Dave Weiner. I work at Elmsley Montessori School. I serve as the Magna resource teacher, and my pronouns are he and him. For anyone who's following along in the crowd, just in case you don't feel like you're welcome here, whatever, QR code there, you'll see all the slides later. Yeah, Erin and I represent the City of New Haven LGBTQ Youth Task Force. In January of 2018 is when we officially launched our work. Our work has included many people who are in this room, teachers, health professionals, youth serving organizations, LGBTQ youth advocates. Anyone who was here in the beginning, you want to raise your hand? If you're still in the room, raise your hand. Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, so our work is the work of advocacy. We're here to strive to build a more affirming community and empower all LGBTQ youth to live healthy, open, safe, and meaningful lives across all of our schools. Our work has had a lot of success and a lot of ongoing struggles. We were at the table and worked in partnership with many people at the district level to pass the trans affirming policy 2 years ago this month. We helped to sponsor trainings for a number of different stakeholders in the community. We have been supporting and connecting GSAs across our city. There are GSAs in every high school and in about 1.5, maybe 2 middle schools, depending on how you count. That means there are 24 that don't have any functioning club group. We are doing the work of advancing inclusive health curriculum and love working with people like Nali and her department to think about what needs to be included in elementary through high school education. We don't start this work with 14-year-olds. We start with children at the beginning, like Sarah, like Alder Miller had mentioned. The Glisson's Rainbow Library launches a project of our work, which is now helping to provide LGBTQ affirming text across the state, across the country. We love and we champion, we celebrate the work of the New Haven Pride Center. They're here with us tonight. They have had a major move in the past couple weeks. And perhaps you'll all have the opportunity to visit their space soon. Yeah, and we're here to build a community of advocates and ensure that we are here to help connect anyone who's trying to fight and ensure that LGBTQ youth are healthy, safe, and well. That's a bit of our story. One of the reasons why we're meeting tonight is because it's been 2 years since the trans policy was passed by the Board of Education. This district-wide policy had a lot of tremendously important language included, and it talked about a lot of meaningful topics, including privacy and official records and pronouns, restroom accessibility, dress codes, discrimination, and professional development. Just to pull a quote that's very specific and important, which we're going to talk about tonight, and Tiffany Jackson had mentioned before, The policy recommends that we provide training for all district staff. It also recommends age-appropriate training for all students. That is in the policy that was passed 2 years ago. We're on the way, and we are very far from being all the way. That's where we started 2 years ago, and since that time, folks like Dr. Baker, our Title IX coordinator, have invited us to the table at figuring out what are the important questions that we ask all students and families and staff about climate and culture. And the results are horrible. The results are damning. The results are signify that there is a crisis. And the results remind us that we have tons of important work to do and that all of us have a role in helping to ensure that we get there. So 2 years ago, the climate survey results told us very specifically that children who identify as LGBTQ feel less safe and less sense of belonging in their schools. The data did not get much better in the year following. We've had 2 years of data, and this is panorama surveys. This is what the district pays for, and we're not surprised by any of this. I'm sure that no one in the room is surprised by any of this. This is what we know to be true. Anecdotally, this is what we hear from people, from families, and from children, and from teachers. And it's what we know to be nationally true. This is not rocket science. It's not unsurprising. But we now have a large set of local data that tells us that our children are unwell. And that reminds us that we have tons of important work to do, and we can. We are a city and a school community that centers social and emotional well-being. We have people in this room whose job it is to do SEL work across our district. We've decided to invest in school-based health centers. We have engaged in attendance campaigns. We care about why are children not coming to school, why do they not feel well. If we're working in so many ways to engage and center our typically marginalized populations, and we're trying to strive to listen to children and tell us what they need, our children are telling us what they need. And they've told lots of us in this room, and that's why we're here to remind you that there's lots of responsibility that we all have as elected representatives to listen and to act urgently because our children are suffering. We're here as representatives. Erin and I have worked with many people who are in this room who will have the opportunity to speak their own truth and their own experience. But on behalf of our members, we have a number of recommendations that we're offering to you, as well as to the district and to everyone who's in this room, because we all have a stake in helping to ensure that all of our children are safer and healthier. I turn the microphone over to Erin.
So we have 5 big asks. And honestly, in my opinion, these are the bare minimum. There's a lot more that we can do for students. We can go to the next. And we'll go through each of these 5 asks. The number 1 is public visible support and affirmation for our students. Everyone deserves to be seen, heard, acknowledged, and appreciated. All of those things. And honestly, as a queer person, I feel a little bit invisible in our city. As a queer teacher, I feel invisible in this city. I don't know how our students feel. Actually, we do know how they feel. They feel invisible. They feel unseen. They feel unheard. They feel unwelcome. Their attendance is poor. They feel sad. They don't want to come to school. We keep talking about absenteeism. A lot of our students who fall on the spectrum do not come to school. They feel victimized. You can see here we have some research at the bottom. Students that feel welcome do better with their attendance, they do better in school, and they have better mental health.
Dr. Negron was present at Career High School this past May at a Pride celebration. That's meaningful work. Showing up and being really clear about values and saying that queer children matter is essential. There was no message that the district sent out last week about the Trans Day Remembrance. We haven't celebrated the important visibility that we can possibly be doing across our district. And I expect, and I anticipate this is going to come soon, Dr. Negron can have the GSA meetings. District leadership can regularly, as what happened tonight. This is all of our work, and we should all be talking about it all the time. Visibility feels like a really possible next step that everyone is engaged in.
If we go back, I mean, at the early days of HIV and AIDS epidemic in our country, there was a lot of invisibility at that time. I'm not equating it to that, but it feels that way. Every time I think of invisibility, that's what I think of. Recommendation 2 is that there's a GSA in every middle school, and that there's funding for a GSA in every school in our district. Currently, we have 1.5, 2-ish GSAs in middle schools. We did have one at my former school. I'm at a high school now. My old school does not have a GSA anymore. We have students coming in at freshman level who are lost, coming into these from smaller schools into larger schools, and they don't know these resources are for them. We need them at the middle school level.
And we know that gender identity does not show up for people at age 15. We know that middle school is a necessary place where spaces of safety and affirmation should exist. And clubs should not exist because some excited teacher makes it happen. Right? If we believe that this is SEL work and not just some club of gathering of people who like something, then we make sure that it happens, we invest in it, and we continue to support it with necessary training, so that way it's work that's happening well, and not just haphazardly or randomly based upon some teacher's interest.
It's for their mental health, so they feel safe. They're more targeted for bullying and discrimination. We need to make sure that we have it starting at the lowest level possible, even lower than middle school, but school is the bare minimum. Next. Comprehensive training for all staff in all schools. I heard earlier that 20 schools have received training, and those I'm assuming are teachers or teachers and immediate support staff, assistant teachers. We think it should be all employees in the district. It's not just teachers who interact with students. I have a story recent that just happened at my school. A student came to me and said, with a transgender student, and said, I was kicked out of the girls' bathroom by the security guard because it makes other girls uncomfortable. And she proceeded to tell me that there were no other students in the bathroom, there were no adults around. So this was an adult doing this on their own. And they were in a very bad place about it. So it's happening even at a school that teaches the arts, where we're very welcoming of students of all kinds. It's happened. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say about that.
Yeah, I'll offer as a very bare minimum and a first step that could be immediately implemented. There are a number of required online trainings that all teachers have to participate in. Vector is a contract, and they have a 21-minute online training related to LGBTQ identity folk. And the district, I presume that training is already available to us optionally, but it could be made required, presumably within the course of this year. And what we're recommending is that that's not just for our certified teaching staff. Loud and clear, all of our students are engaging with lots of adults in our building, and we get that's complicated. We know there's a lot of different contracts. We expect that this is complicated and that the district is going to manage this in a way that's responsible.
Back to what Ms. Miller was talking about, curriculum in all subjects, not just health, although health needs to be fortified, but in all subjects. In history, the history of LGBTQ people and their additions to our society. Again, visibility. And age appropriate. We can talk about families in pre-K and first grade and kindergarten and higher level things at other levels. The more exposure that all students have, not just LGBTQ plus students, but all students have to these resources, the better off our students are going to be in the long run. And again, this has been discussed before, full-time social workers, counselors, and psychologists in every school with reasonable caseloads. There's nothing more to say about that. It's been said over and over again, and it's essential.
Yeah, part-time, itinerant, it's insufficient. It won't work, and people in this room know that it's not working, it's not enough. We get that this costs a ton of money because people matter, and people cost a lot of money. And that investment is required in order for us to be able to do it well. In some cases, some of these people are the best fit to be leading GSAs, but also they need to be available, safe people for children in the building. So we're not expecting that there's one social worker in every school, or that we have no more itinerant counselors. We expect that there's lots of them, and that we don't expect the crisis to be solved until those hires happen. It requires a lot of work and a lot of money, and our children deserve it.
I'm very excited to collaborate and work with the district, with city more on this. There's been a lot of work done, and there's lots of people who want to do more work. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, the room is full of people who I think share a lot of our belief statements. Like, we are in a place where we totally believe that this stuff is achievable, that some of the things to do are immediate, because they're urgent, but also because they're possible. And we believe, and we're going to continue working to make it more possible, that LGBTQ youth have the opportunity to lead healthy, open, safe, and meaningful lives in our district. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here and for your presentation. We're excited to work with you as well on these incredibly important issues. I'm going to ask my colleagues, have any questions for?
I just have one comment. First and foremost, how we doing? I heard you say a couple of times queer. They're all children. And I just hope that we can just treat them all the same as children, regardless of whatever their sexual preferences are. Let's respect them as who they are. Absolutely. And not call them queers.
I agree with what you're saying, and I do think that it is a word that's now been an inclusive word. And again, we're not just referring to sexuality, we're also referring to gender and those things. And it's been a word that's been accepted to bring all those in, but I do agree with you entirely, and I will take that. I will absolutely take that advice.
Thank you. Just fringe me.
Absolutely. Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation and for your work. And also for these beautiful testimonies from students, which are really poignant in and of themselves. And I think the fact that we have them tells a story. And I wondered if you could talk, they seem to mostly come from LCD Montessori, perhaps not exclusively. I wonder if you could talk about the work that happens at LCD Montessori around this issue as a potential case study for the district.
Sure. Again, I work at LCD Montessori. And one of my roles is to help steward our Gender Sexuality Alliance. Our crew is 4th through 8th grade members. We have about, I'd say, 20 to 30 or so folks who are showing up. We meet every other Friday for a half hour during lunch. And yeah, and a number of testimonies that you received, and you'll be hearing from a few of those students tonight as well, is part of the work. So like we see, you know, GLSEN, a national organization that thinks through like how to help schools be safe, has sort of like 3 pillars, like what an effective GSA can do. And I feel like the 3 concentric circles include like social stuff, advocacy stuff, and support stuff. And some GSAs try and do one of those things because like most students need support and it needs to be a really safe space where people can talk about stuff that's hard. And some clubs, I can think about, like, we have an academy being like a beacon for like really like heavy social work, where I feel like getting together and being a space of community is really really matters to them. And the pillar of advocacy, something that we center, but like in the course of our meetings, we try and do like something social, something support, and something advocacy in the course of every one of our meetings. Yeah, it's built over time. It's been about 2-ish years. We actually started online during the pandemic. And anyone in the room is welcome to come and visit if you want to see us in action or get some ideas for like how your club could run, or just talk to children about why it matters to them. But 4th through 8th grade people are totally capable of doing this work really well.
Thank you, Alder Miller. Oliver.
Yes, I have a question. Can you please explain what is Early Initiative?
Early Initiative GSAs. Where are we? Where should I be?
I think that my colleague here is referring Mr. Weintraub to anonymous NHPS email that was sent. And in the second paragraph, there's an F in box print area inactive. Just the sentence, my daughter is at NHPS middle school, and explain that sentence.
Yeah, no, so Alder, that is referring to testimony that was submitted by a parent at a school. It was given to me, and then I submitted it to all of you. The sentence was fairly inactive. So it was referring to a GSA in their school that is fairly inactive, which I think speaks to what happens when the district doesn't prioritize making these clubs super effective in every school. So this is a parent who is concerned that the club exists, but isn't doing what they need to be doing. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. I think following up on that, I had a question, Karen. I was wondering if you could tell us, or maybe explain if you know, you mentioned that there was a GSA at the school that you were at, and Columbus, I think maybe telling us a story, that story, if you know it about what happened there might be helpful.
So, you know, the background, this is my 24th year in the district. I spent 23 years at Beecher School. With the help of David and all we've done, I did establish a GSA with those students there. And we ran very similar to that GSA. I had a co-advisor. This year, I decided to take a new position at co-op, and you know, new challenge, and it's wonderful. And it didn't fall apart because the administration was 100% for it, and that's a really good thing. It fell apart because it was one person holding it up, to be quite honest. And if there isn't a system-wide system to keep it going, it's not going to stay. So I do believe that there's some effort to maybe get it back in place. And again, what's happening is it's a lot of just individuals who are doing this work, which is great, but it needs to be more.
That's what happened with Melanie Gallagher when she left Morrow Sheridan. The club existed, and didn't. And yeah, like power from the top and power from the bottom are both required to make this work happen.
Thank you. I think that's an important point to make. Explaining what happened. It's like we need some more institutional support to make sure that these aren't just relying on one person's. Thank you for bringing that energy, you know, for many years and tonight, but we need to make sure it's not just about one person who really cares about these issues. Any other questions from? Seeing none for now, I think we've got lots of folks signed up to testify, so we will move to that portion of the meeting. Thank you so much for your presentation, for all of your organizing work, for the work you do. So as I mentioned a couple times, we will have public testimony. Everybody's going to have 3 minutes. If you haven't signed up yet, there should be a sheet over on the right side of the room, my right side of the room, where you can sign up. And we're excited to hear all of you and very grateful that you're here. So we're going to start with Talana Monique Lawson Dickerson. Being here, if you could start with your name and address for the record.
First one is David. So my name is Talana Monique Lawson Dickerson. I use they, she pronouns. And so I'm also the youth services coordinator over at the New Haven Pride Center as well. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak on behalf of the New Haven Pride Center and be able to share some of the things we have learned from the experiences of LGBTQ+ students in hopes that we can continue to make New Haven public schools more inclusive. We know that it is no surprise that bullying poses a significant challenge for LGBTQ students. What we have learned from students is that we should consider broadening the definition of bullying by encompassing actions that seek to harm, intimidate, or coerce based on perceived vulnerability, including those related to gender and sexuality. We have also learned that comprehensive training programs to address biases among teachers and staff is needed. Just to that point, I know the issue of training has come up a lot today, but the importance is the quality of the training, the analysis of the training, and honestly, who is actually providing the training. Having a straight cisgender person to a training about LGBTQ folks might not be the best idea. Just want to note that. Students have reported to us that teachers often bring negative biases that far too often reinforce bullying in the classroom or even experience bullying from the teachers and school staff themselves. And we've had incidences where some teachers have piggybacked off of bullying from students joining in on laughter and pointing things out. A transparent system of accountability, preferably anonymous, is crucial for fostering safer educational spaces. Creating safer and more welcoming school is also important to address the issue of school attendance. We acknowledge that this is a complex issue, with many LGBTQ students not only avoiding schools due to safety concerns, but also other factors. In order to understand those other factors, it is important to recognize the intersectionalities of their identities. We propose creating inclusive environments that honor and highlight the contributions of Black, brown, and queer individuals to the world through improvements in curriculum. Normalizing queerness in all school spaces is essential for fostering accountability, but also highlighting its intersection with race and ethnicity is also important. A curriculum that reflects the diversity of historical figures, including Black, brown, and queer models, is crucial for promoting understanding and acceptance. As we step to ensure the safety and well-being of LGBTQ students, we also recommend fully funding gay straight alliances, GSAs, in schools, funding GSAs prevents the burden from falling on students to request support that is already so often to ask. Something that has come up was that the fact that New Haven Public Schools have GSAs, but if it doesn't automatically have a GSA, forcing that onto the students to ask the school for GSAs is automatically a non-starter. And I will submit the rest of my testimony because I'm over my time.
Thank you so much. All right, next we have Harmony Cruz Bustamante.
Good evening. My name is Harmony. I'm a senior queer high school student at Fort Cross, and I'm the senior student representative to the Board of Education. I recall a month ago, I was walking down the hallway on the third floor of Cross when there was a group of students who, I don't know where randomly accosted me. And this isn't the first time, right, that that's happened. So I know how to deal with that. I know how to kind of process it and then let it go. But that should not be the norm for students to learn how to handle that, how to remedy that. I think in government, a lot of the times the policies that we create and its ideals are almost never faithfully executed. And I think the 2021 transgender policy is no exception. A lot of progress has been made in high schools like Metro, like Wilbur Cross, through GSAs. And I want to continue to ask the district and you all, as members of local government, to hold yourselves accountable to that. Combating homophobia, transphobia, and anti-queerness among adults and students is cultural work. And like I had a conversation with my friend Timo, it's a work of heart. It's not something that can be written down and implemented through policies and books and statutes. So I call on the district and the local government to provide material resources and funding to these GSAs so that these students and teachers can carry out that work. Cultural unions and GSAs need more funding and support in order to be successful. They need to be in every middle and high school, and they have to have their student and teacher sponsors uplifted, recognized, and adequately compensated. And I think it's also important to remember that queer students are not just queer students. They're also Black and brown, wealthy and poor. My main concern as student representative is for those marginalized groups, those oppressed groups, who not only have their queerness suppressed, but have their entire livelihoods and futures on the line, right? The folks who don't have a place to lay their head at night or food to eat. It is queer, Black, and brown poor students who face additional threats and harm because of disenfranchisement and marginalization. And this is the job that local government is taking into account. The district can only do so much to provide social services, but at what point do we put the burden of local government on the schools themselves? I could also speak really quickly on the student side. We are organizing all student councils to create student defense branches and taking a more active rather than passive role in making sure that students are safe. So that when a student is accosted by another student or by a faculty member, they can get justice and they can get discipline done so that it does not happen to them again. And I'm more than happy to elaborate on that at another time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank
you. Next, we have Sarah Armstrong.
Hi, I'm Sarah Armstrong. I live at 443 Edgewood Avenue, Edgewood neighborhood. I use she, her pronouns. I am a New Haven public school parent. I'm an educator. We have 2 sons who are NHPS graduates, and our 3rd son is a senior at Hill House. With his consent, I share that our youngest son is queer, the word that he proudly uses to describe himself. He has been out throughout his high school years. He has been fortunate to have tremendously supportive friends and some deeply caring and supportive teachers. A small note, but significant in our lives, was last spring. He attended prom with his then boyfriend, who was a senior at Co-op, and they had an awesome time together. While our son has heard general homophobic slurs in school halls and other school spaces, he's been both homophobic and transphobic slurs in school halls and other spaces. He's been very fortunate not to have received targeted taunts or hate at school. However, he knows and we know he is cis and he is white and he comes from a family that loves him in his fullness. He knows that this is not the case for all other NHPS students, and he and we are concerned about other LGBTQ plus students, particularly trans students and trans students of color in the district. Long before the issue of supporting LGBTQ plus students became personal in our home, it was of keen interest to me as an educator. In 1995, as a high school teacher, I attended an early GLSEN conference. That was the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Educators Network. It had another name in it. Because even before I knew the staggering and heart-wrenching data around LGBTQ plus youth concerning self-harm and homelessness, I understood as a person, as an educator, the basic idea is that if a student does not feel safe in school, they cannot learn. So I applaud the work of the LGBTQ youth task force and the board of adoption of student-centered transgender policy. Of course, the big question now is this policy being lived and upheld in all New Haven public schools across the district by all teachers and by all school staff and all administration? Sadly, we've heard numerous times where this is not the case. So I stand in support of our LGBTQ youth. I feel extreme gratitude to all the New Haven school educators, staff, and admin who show public visible support and care for our LGBTQ plus students. And I want to give a shout out to the Hill House teachers who have cared for my son and his fullness. And I want to give a shout out to my colleagues at New Haven Academy who are tremendously loving and caring of all students. So thank you.
Sorry.
My name is Alberto Cifuentes Jr. I'm a licensed social worker at the State of Connecticut, of the Gender Sexuality Alliance, or GSA Coordinator Plus. Youth empowers them to be authentically, entirely themselves. I'm speaking to advocate for the safety and rights of New LGBTQ+ students and spread awareness of the importance of GSAs in New Haven public schools. As GSA Coordinator Plus, I'm in charge of providing support and resources to GSAs throughout the state. I visited numerous GSAs throughout Connecticut, had the pleasure of talking with many middle school and high school students about the goals for their GSA and the challenges they have on a day-to-day basis. GSAs provide students with affirming and inclusive spaces to be themselves and receive social and emotional support from members of their school community. Research has shown that among LGBTQ+ students, the presence of GSAs at school was related to fewer indicators of negative school climate, such as fewer anti-LGBTQ remarks from peers, less anti-LGBTQ victimization, or like missing school for safety reasons. LGBTQ students in schools with GSAs report greater well-being, specifically a greater sense of belonging to their school community, higher levels of self-esteem, and lower levels of depression. There's also some evidence that GSA involvement has been linked to having a higher GPA, a greater likelihood of graduating high school, and greater involvement in community activism for LGBTQ youth. GSAs are important cornerstones of K-12 schools, provide many leadership opportunities for students. We empower students to engage in advocacy and create the change that they want to see in the world. I do this work because I realize that GSAs are important solidarity spaces and safe havens for students that often deal with hostile school climates. GSAs help alleviate the effects of bullying and harassment in schools and promote more welcoming campuses for all students. New Haven needs to make it a priority to make sure schools are safe and affirming for queer youth. New Haven public schools need public visible support from NHPS leadership, so the New Haven LGBTQ Youth Task Force is established, and committed social workers in every school to help build meaningful connections with students. The New Haven LGBTQ Youth Task Force has done some really great work towards establishing GSAs, ensuring funding for GSAs, including budgets for activities and programming, for advisors. I ask you to please prioritize the creation and support of GSAs in New Haven public schools and foster better avenues of funding and advisement for these clubs.
You want to leave your desk?
I intend.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Next we have Manuel Camacho.
Good evening, all. My name is Manuel Camacho. I'm a recent graduate of Jamestown High School. Many of you know I've been the youth activist since middle school. My freshman year at the university. I'm here delivering my remarks regarding the key asks that are being brought to attention today. I believe that it is indeed crucial for NHPS leadership to provide visible support to a demographic of our NHPS student population. Every student should feel as though they are supported by the adults who are overseeing their educational journey. Discrimination in any form and to anyone should not be tolerated or accepted. I'm truly in favor of doing all that we can as a city to hire and retain social workers, school psychologists, counselors, and further support staff in order to provide support for students who are having difficulty in school or out of school. As you know, they often come to school as a safe place. According to the World Health Organization, globally, 1 in 7 10 to 19-year-olds experience a mental disorder. That accounts for 13% of the global burden of statistics. Depression, anxiety, and behavioral disorders are among the leading causes of illness and disability among them. Suicide is the 4th leading cause of death between 15 to 29-year-olds. Consequences of failing to address adolescent mental health conditions extend to adulthood. impairing both physical and mental health, and limiting opportunities to lead fulfilling lives as adults. It is my most earnest wish that we may cultivate a more welcoming and supportive life for our students in many generations to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here. Next up, we have a member of our Board of Education, Matt Wilcox. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, my name is Matt Wilcox. I live at 1135 Forest Road in New Haven. I just wanted to take a moment tonight to thank you all for having this important topic as a topic for your committee meeting here tonight. Shines a nice light on these issues, gives people a chance to talk, and it gives people like me a chance to listen and to make notes and plan ahead for the work to be done in the coming weeks. But this is important because, you know, obviously each day in the paper we hear about increased attacks on LGBTQ folks in this country. We're hearing about attacks on their basic human rights, attacks in school and public libraries, on library collections and materials. That's affirming to folks. And then having attacks on access to evidence-based healthcare, despite the best medical evidence from groups of experts. We're having a lot of attacks around this country on that. And then as well as the physical attacks. And as had been noted earlier, we're just about a week and a half past the transgender, the National Transgender Memorial Day, which is memorial for those that are actually murdered transgender folks. So in the 2 years since the board has passed, unanimously passed the transgender youth policy, there is work that's happened, but there's obviously going to need more work that needs to be done. And it does mandate that training, but the training isn't evenly done across the district. And so I know, we've heard tonight that there's plans in place to continue that training out. And so I have every faith that that'll happen. And then obviously as a board member, I'll be asking, updates as to how the training that's been planned for the next coming months, how it's progressing and what's the reach of that. We also have the issue with the lost my train of thought there. So, but there is work that needs to be done. And looking at this list here, I'm in support of all these things. One of the things I'm personally going to be looking into is what are the barriers of establishing GSAs in the middle schools, to see if there's structural or cost barrier that's in place that we could help alleviate that. One thing that I will mention is that I would be remiss if I didn't mention that there are some of these supports that are so important because, obviously the Trevor Project notes that LGBTQ youth are 4 times more likely to attempt suicide. So things, this is obviously a very real issue. But one of the things here, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention about when it comes to dedicated social workers, counselors, and folks like that, there is something that doesn't help. In the last year, the district put together and revised their staffing guidelines. And based on the staffing guidelines, we need 16 more social workers in the district, 11 school counselors, 6 psychologists, 14 restorative practice coaches, and they really would like to add 49 school climate culture specialists, 1 in each school and 2 in the schools of more than 600. So that these are folks that can help build the climate and not just alleviate issues for LGBTQ youth, but also all the youth with all the other aspects of their lives. And these things cost money, tons of money. And so, as we bring forth funding to you all, but also more importantly, as we all work together to increase funding for schools from the state, so that one of the richest states can more equitably fund their schools. That's something that we're going to need continued help on as we identify to where we can actually afford to have these folks that are so needed for these students. So thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. Next, I think we have Boss Pointer. Thank you for being here.
Hi, my name is Baz Holmes Pointer, and I live in the Fairhaven neighborhood in New Haven. I am here speaking today because um, I am a trans gay person. I am going to talk about how hard it is to be me. As I said, I'm trans and gay. At my school and other places, people sometimes ask really inappropriate questions, as in, so you have a penis? Would you sleep with someone that's a boy or a girl? I want this to change because I don't think anyone would like to be asked who they would sleep with and what they have. I want to have morals at school to help trans people feel safe. Instead, I want teachers to to talk to kids to tell them to not say that, and they call SEL people to tell kids that it is not okay. And I want kids to know that if they ask those questions, they will make people feel very uncomfortable. I also want teachers to teach kids about LGBTQ history because in my school we learn about LGBTQ history, even though we spend a lot of time trying to make LGBTQ rights more. Even though I don't get how we can do that if some of the kids don't even know that much about LGBTQ history and about famous LGBTQ people and things that happened in history. Thank you for your time.
So much for being here. And keep speaking out and sharing your story and your voice. Next we have Evie Pointer.
My name is Evie Pointer. I live at 49 Perkins Street in New Haven, and I'm a committed member of the City Council Care. I'm in 8th grade. I'm testifying today because I believe the environment in our school, as well as the other public schools in New Haven, is unsafe for LGBTQ plus students' mental and physical well-being. Not only that, but I believe that the homophobia and transphobia that is perpetuated by students and teachers is unsafe for straight, cisgender, and LGBTQ plus questioning students as well. My sibling is trans. At her old school, she was bullied and teased when she went to the bathroom, no matter which one she went in, because there was no room for a gender-neutral bathroom, and the younger students were not allowed to use the teacher's bathroom. My siblings' comfort and safety was not prioritized because of lack of funding and support from the city of New Haven. When you switched to City Montessori, our family hoped it would be more accepting because of the AVAR work that is put in from staff and families. However, I see microaggressions against LGBTQ plus students happen often at our school, and they are rarely addressed because of the other work our SEL team and director of AVAR program is already doing for our community. One of the things I'm asking the city for is funding for the hiring of social workers and other SEL trained guides who can support LGBTQ plus youth in schools with a reasonable caseload. Another thing that could improve our schools is an introduction to LGBTQ plus subjects in health and sex education curriculums. This would include lessons about hormone replacement therapy, IVF, and ways to have safe sex. This would go beyond condoms and explain the way STDs can be transmitted. As someone growing up in the New Haven public school system that has 2 moms, I'm tired of the feelings of otherness that are directly caused by the exclusion of non-traditional pregnancy and parenthood. Thank you for listening to my testimony.
Thank you for being here and speaking out. Next we have Jade Santiago Rojas.
Good evening, dear members of the Board of Education Committee, and good evening, members of the Board of Education and Community. My name is Heather. I live at 49 Livingston Street in New Haven. I am a worried and concerned student of Elm City Montessori School. I am here today that I think all public schools in New Haven should have GSAs established and have them fully funded by the city. I also think that the city should fund more training for both teachers and staff about LGBTQ youth. Make all public schools around New Haven have make LGBTQ students feel safe and not judged for being themselves. In my past experiences at public schools before transferring to Elm City Montessori School, I never once was told about LGBTQ people and what is a part of the LGBTQ community. Luckily, my parents are very open to the topic and taught me themselves about what being LGBTQ plus means and how to support them. I feel that since growing up, none of my classmates really knew anything about sexuality or gender. This caused a lot of bullying, and if anyone found out you were not normal, which meant you were not straight, you would get shamed for it. And the worst part was that when teachers um to see the bullying never did anything to stop it. My old school was an environment that made me feel unsafe and unwelcome. It made it hard to figure out who I was and to find my identity. I don't think any student should have to feel unwelcome and unsafe in a place they have to go 5 days a week and 6 hours a day. This is why I think that all schools in the union should have GSA to help students who are LGBTQ feel like they have a safe space where they can explore and discover their identity. And of course, teachers and staff should be trained more about LGBTQ youth, how to support them, and much more. So no student has to feel like they can't be their true self at school. Thank you all.
And next we have Caroline Henderson.
My name is Caroline Thompson Smith, and I live in Orange Street. So, first of all, thank you so much to the amazing young people and supporters who have testified today, and thank you to you all for hosting this conversation and listening so closely and attentively. I wanted to bring up just one specific main point, which was about the value of GSAs. And essentially, GSAs are really valuable but they're also deeply beneficial for those young people who aren't quite ready yet. And I was one of those young people. As a lot of people know, I've been for the last 13 or so years. And then prior to that, I grew up in the South, a child of an immigrant. My mom immigrated here from South Korea, and my dad also moved to the South. And so I grew up in a community that wasn't familiar with the experience. And there was fear and there was concern. And so for me at that time, I wasn't ready to be a part of the GSA. I wasn't out, I wouldn't be out and even, but I saw them. I saw them featured in a book, on the news, or on social media. And even just knowing that they existed made a difference. And there are many kids like me whose background or experiences put them in a place where perhaps they're not ready to participate. They're certainly watching and being able to see funded staff to support GSAs, to watch peers like them who are leading and hosting activities. That makes a difference. And it might give us that comfort to be able to speak to a trusted teacher, to be able to talk to a friend, or even just write about it. And right now, I think we're in a moment in time where all the hands on deck to be able to support our young people to reach their full potential and be proud of the city that we all love. Supporting GSB's on staff. Thank you so much.
You on very soon. Next we have Leslie.
Leslie Bianchini, um,
Take your time.
um, sorry, LT Grasser Boulevard. I am a fifth grader at Worthington Hooker School. Um, and I prefer to be called Ava. And this is the speech I have prepared. The world is not organized for trans has clothing skills and much more. I felt like I was a part of the group. For most cliques at school are all of one gender. Therefore, as non-binary, I did not fit with any group. I'm even bullied and treated like I have a lesser worth as a human. Being called the A word in fourth grade. Another thing that makes school different for non-binary youth is general activities. Teachers use like whenever they have in the class, say boys and girls. They know that I'm non-binary, which makes me feel like I'm not welcome or a part of the class. And even though they're not intentionally gendering their language and activities, it feels like it. And sometimes it is intentional. My first year of transition in second grade, my home teacher gives it by being on Fridays doing a boys versus girls spelling test, of which I was neither, and it forced me to act as my foreign sex instead of who I was. Another thing that forced me to not be who I am in school was bathrooms. It's not until a year and a fourth after I transitioned that I stopped using the boy bathroom. I started going to the nurse's office. There was a clean private bathroom that had a music symbol on the door, which meant safe. I used that one for a while until it got out of hand with students who actually needed to go to the nurse's office, which made me feel uncomfortable and worrying if I would have to use the boys' restroom again. But I was moved to the teacher's restroom next to the social worker's office. Although kids still passive-aggressively ask, why are you using that one? I still feel like being a trans youth is a diverse part of me that will never go away.
Next, we have Patty Nicolari.
Thank you for having me. My name is Patty Nicolari, and I live at 56 Harbor Close in New Haven. I just have to say I am so thoroughly impressed by the youth having a voice and the opportunity to speak up tonight. As a former LGBTQ educator of almost 40 years, most of my time spent in the closet, I am just wishful that I could be a part of life today, knowing what I know now. I'm also wearing the hat of, I'm the founder of Proud Academy, which is the first school geared for LGBTQ youth and their allies. Now, in my mind, there shouldn't be a need for a school like Proud Academy, where students have safe and affirming school to attend. However, being out in the community at Pride events and hearing from families and students like the ones present today, schools are not safe. And there's a lot of education that needs to take place. I wholeheartedly support David and the LGBTQ task force and everything that they are proposing today. And when I heard Caroline speak about the GSA, I could remember being so afraid to go up to a glisten table, the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network, when I was in the closet. Very uncomfortable to be in the closet and be an educator. So it's very empowering to have clubs, even if people don't attend, just for validation. And let me tell you, we have a sense of urgency here. Connecticut is a safe and affirming state. We've had people wanting to come to Proud Academy from Florida, from Texas, from North Carolina, and from New York. They're trying to get out of spaces that don't feel safe. And when I hear the testimony today, I think they might be hesitant to think about Connecticut as a safe space if they're hearing students say it's really not. So there are laws that I've known as a principal, section 10-145D-400A, the Code of Responsibility for Educators to create a safe and affirming learning environment. That's been on the records forever. We know sometimes having policies in place don't always solve the problem. We know from the Civil Rights Movement, from the Voting Act, that doesn't sometimes change. I think changing the school culture will absolutely impact change. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who's coming out here tonight and speaking. I hope that New Haven public schools shine as they should. I wholeheartedly support public schools. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. And next, we have Wilma Ribby.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Wilma Rubio. My pronouns are she, her, ella, and I work at 374 Grand Avenue. I am the operations director for HIV, Gender, and Sexual Health Department at Fairhaven Community Healthcare. I am here to speak on the importance of health education and knowledge of resources available in the community, specifically gender and sexual health in our schools. We are one of the federally qualified health centers here in New Haven, and for the purpose of this meeting, have 7 school-based health centers in New Haven and 11 overall. I want to highlight how important it is to have this resource in schools for students and their families, especially to foment the climate we want to incorporate today. We provide care for more than 20,000 kids, which makes us the biggest pediatric provider in the region. We pride ourselves in providing high-quality care for everyone that walks through our doors. And we are proud to serve and support the LGBT community and are working to be more inclusive and equitable in our environment with the help of everyone here tonight, as we know how LGBTQ-specific care is to members of the community. We also provide a range of services within our school-based health centers, including testing for sexually transmitted infections, reproductive care, HIV testing, and prevention. Our main goal is to let the community know that we are a resource, not only able to provide the services, but also guidance. One of our biggest strengths is being able to collaborate with other organizations, many present here tonight, but it's hard to talk about sexual health, much less gender care, where there's much pushback still. But students are eager and open to them, and that's what we need to focus on. One work that we have been doing specifically at Wilbercross High School is specific to sexual health and educating around STI, sexually transmitted infections prevention, HIV rapid testing, and prevention medication. And it let us identify that education is needed still, not only amongst the students, but also with parents and the community. Health literate kids will become healthy and safe adult individuals that would also know how to utilize resources adequately and responsibly. Kids are living in a generation that is more open to diversity, and it's up to us to join them in that process and provide the assets and make the laws that will actually serve and protect them in the future. Thank you.
Next, we have Lucy O'Connell.
Good evening, and Sarah had her child's permission to talk tonight. My child, for Fred, my My name is Lucy O'Connell. I live at 167 Willard Street. I'm the mother of a 16-year-old trans child and a 13-year-old son. They are a senior at James Hill House High School and an eighth grader. They've attended the NHPS schools since kindergarten, and between the two of them, they've attended 6 NHPS schools total. I'm a nurse midwife in New Haven, and I actually work at the Community Health Center. I have serious concerns that sexual health is not a priority at all in NHPS. Neither of my children have had any education regarding puberty and their changing bodies ever while they have attended school. NHPS is out of compliance with state law that provides clear benchmarks in 4th, 8th, and 12th grades for sexual health education. My trans son describes this omission as a cruelty inflicted by NHPS. Despite the sexual education they received at home, they felt woefully unprepared, navigating puberty at a school. He had to use an in-class bathroom while menstruating, and if he wanted to use another bathroom in the nurse's office, he had to announce the fact that he was menstruating. And in fact, all of the girls to get permission to use the bathroom, a more private bathroom, they have to ask permission. My child felt further isolated by the fact that there was no comprehensive program regarding puberty and felt it would have been helpful had they have been taught in a group of other students. He told me that if he had access to comprehensive sexual health curriculum at NHPS in a classroom, he might not have felt so isolated. Well, he said that I prepared them for puberty based on my own experience. The physical, cognitive, and emotional changes that he experienced were very different from what I experienced. For him, puberty is what kicked off his trans journey. Every day, I see the harms due to inadequate sexual education program at NHPS in my own children and my own patients. The NHPS does not consistently teach puberty and sexual health. It leaves our children in the dark about their bodies, sex, sexuality, and in its place leaves an open door vulnerable LGBTQ children. Thank you.
Next, we have Ernie Cloman. You can write.
So, good evening. My name is Ernie Coleman. I am the new borough manager for the city of New Haven. I came as a result of Dave having to come and speak to just let you know that we have been doing a lot of stuff to bridge the gap between the task force and the Pride Center. I had a good meeting with them last week. We've been trying to brainstorm and get some things together so that we can implement some more programs and try to help them with the stuff that they're doing. Tomorrow we ended up having like a 3-hour meeting that it kind of was supposed to be like a 30-minute meet and greet, and it kind of just went on in a good way. So we are trying to do some things. We're trying to have something we're going to call a chat and chew to invite some LGBTQ influencers and or maybe even LGBTQ celebrity of sorts to kind of come to a conference, do some talking, to do some, just give some more information and to empower our young people. We've been really putting a lot of emphasis on isolated populations of LGBTQ students as well as our immigrant students. So we're pulling a lot of effort in just, getting some more information and just trying to make sure that we can bridge the gaps and make everybody feel comfortable with that. So I've only been in that position for 7 weeks. That's about all I have to say right now, but I do thank you for the time.
Next, we have Hani Koksan. Apologize for that. That's your name.
Oh, it's pretty good.
Doing my best.
and mom. Me. So, in need of my glasses now. I am I use she, her pronoun. I'm a member of the LGBTQ plus task force and a parent of a child, and with his consent, we'll share that he is non-binary and a former student of yes. Share that I pulled my child from the district a few years ago because many of the things that have been shared already today, clothing, not having bathrooms, staff. I literally had a teacher ask me if my child thought he was more than one person because at times that pronouns when I was hired. I got started at BoA in 2019 at a middle school. I was told by the administrator that it was not developmentally appropriate for middle school students. And so I love hearing that the progress has been made with the implementation of the policy, but not having all staff, not having students be educated 42 years later is just not acceptable. With the policy implementation, being strategic can be good, but if it's not done, so students vulnerable in tough situations, for mental health, feeling like their needs don't matter, like they don't matter. This can lead to some children engaging in self-harm, it leads to some children having thoughts of suicide, it leads to some to act on it, and some of them are successful. I can't stress enough the importance of the implementation of the policy being done properly, being done swiftly, and that the asks made tonight are also implemented. These things are all literally be life-saving. They are a matter of life and death. I think for some who don't are not actively living it, it's hard to imagine how hard it is, how real it is. Thank you all for your time. And I'd also like to just share that spoken. I'm so impressed by them. I did a fourth grade, my first thing was fourth grade, and I ran out of the room. So that's why.
Next, I think we have Ellen Rutledge.
Good evening, others. My name is Dr. Kelvin Rutledge. I use he, him as pronouns. I'm a current resident at 41 Fairfield Street. I also work here in New Haven at Southern Connecticut State University as the Associate Vice President for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Throughout my 5.5-year tenure at Southern, I've really enjoyed working with central office staff at New Haven Public Schools, the talented and amazing staff of the New Haven Pride Center, and then individuals who work in the LGBTQ plus task force. The critical intersection of these collective efforts is very relevant to me as a person and to the institution. And I stand in strong support of the recommendations and dialogue we've had here. I'd also like to champion the need to additionally center a community-based lifespan approach to this conversation. According to the 2021 Gallup Population Survey, roughly 1 in 5 Gen Z individuals identify in the LGBTQ plus community. And trends forecast that similar or higher representation will exist for future and subsequent generations. These individuals are navigating school environments that have the power to create psychological and physical harm, while also being the place that's supposed to be for safety and power. These individuals need the environmental grounding to be successful, and these policies and practices offer a tangible pathway and benefit for the future of our local district. Southern hosted the 2021 Connecticut LGBTQ Youth Conference with the aforementioned organizations and the others across the state. One of the largest messages we heard were three things. One, we need policies that prioritize our wholeness as people. Two, we need organizations like GSAs that provide daily community. And three, we need practices from district employees that empower us to change into the world that we know. Those voices were timely and those voices still hold true. As we heard earlier, New Haven Public Schools is a space for individuals who make become the future students of the Connecticut State College and University system. They will be the future individuals who will contribute to our local workforce, and they're going to be the ones who shape the future success of New Haven and Connecticut at large. Equitable and sustainable policies make a transformational shift that we need, and the organization is going to be a part of that conversation. Again, thank you for the space and the opportunity to speak, and really hope that this work moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have Lee Brzezowski.
Hi everyone, my name is Amy Brzezowski. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm an English teacher at high school and community. But first and foremost, I'm a foster parent to my son, my former student. I want to take a moment to thank the youth activists that have spoken tonight. You matter. My son is an advocate for trans rights, so I'm extremely proud to advocate for him with his support tonight. When I first met my son, his dead name was printed on my class roster. I did not know he was a young trans man until I got to know him as a student in my class. In part, I took on the role of foster mother because I recognize the importance of school community and did not want to remove my son from the most supportive and consistent community in his life. I was aware of the risk that many LGBTQ+ youth in care face when ripped from their family, community, and forced into isolation. My son's story is just one of the many that demonstrate the exceptional, safe place that school can provide. But as we have heard tonight, the current state is not enough. My son, who founded and currently leads the GSA, is now a senior, and I'm wondering about the fate of the student club, as well as the protection and expansion of that space. Furthermore, I also know that we must care for amazing educators who also face challenges as they share their identity that identify with LGBT in the workforce, and who are teachers who want to continue to work, but also face hardship and challenges. On behalf of students and teachers, I urge you to turn your attention to increasing professional development and ensuring that the development does not come directly, and we're not forcing those who are in the community to educate us, but we are educating those who are trained to do so, and strengthen systems and funding that support our LGBTQ+ community in Haven schools.
Next we have Sasha.
Hello, my name is Sasha Luna Rivera. I am a loyal member of my school's GSA, a concerned student of Elm City Montessori School, and I live at Trinity Street in New Haven. I'm testifying about the bullying of LGBTQIA+ youth and supporters. My life is full of LGBTQIA+ people. So, and my mom is a supporter. So I was taught into the world of LGBTQ. The reason I'm testifying for this is because I myself have sometimes been the victim. In kindergarten, I vividly remember a bully refusing his kids to leave together. Why do you like uniforms and rainbows? That's just for girls. You're a boy. This was an act of sexism and homophobia. Sexism because anyone can be anything they want. Homophobia because anyone can be anything they like. I also remember lots of kids in second grade using the word gay as an insult when it's actually a compliment. On the bus a week ago, I heard kids saying things like, "You're gay too," or "There are two girls in the seat," pointing to where they didn't sibling and their non-binary friends at. After I had told them which pronouns to use because it was honestly an honest mistake, they still used her pronouns, and that hurt because it hurt me for them. And I've heard some bus drivers tell other kids, "Aren't you too young for that?" And some people are starting to see my school's GSAs, and that also really hurts a lot because it's taking 15 minutes away from the recess and they want their recess. I don't think that's. I also think we should put up LGBTQIA plus supported murals all around the school to show people gay is okay. What I also think would be a good idea is to teach kids about LGBTQIA plus history and just more about it in general. Thank you for reading my essay. I hope you consider some of my solutions and have a good day.
Thank you for sharing your story tonight, Sasha. Next, we have Rivera.
Hello, I'm actually using the name Ollie today. My name is Ollie Rivera, and I live at 296 Lang Street, New Haven. I'm talking about how we need to improve curriculum to New Haven. In the most recent Women's March, I made a speech protesting making affirming and inclusive programs for queer youth in schools across the country. But even then, everywhere I go, I still see bathrooms and sports teams for boys and girls who are not non-binary, gender fluid, and trans people. This deeply frustrates me because I still can't believe that people are still blind to these kinds of issues. Many people disagree on this and say things like, why can't you just choose one? Or it's not hurting anything. Statements like these are extremely hurtful and discriminatory. It makes people feel like they are unimportant and irrelevant. When I'm at soccer practice, the coaches split up teams for scrimmages between boys and girls. It makes me feel so hurt and so invisible. And speaking for all the kids who feel the same way. I have suggestions that I have for all New Haven public schools. Like instead of assuming someone's gender, ask the other pronouns first, and also talking about students' inclusivity. Another thing I suggest is challenging stereotypes, celebrating LGBTQ+ icons, and making all gender bathrooms. Thank you so much. I'm so lucky to be gifted with this opportunity, and I hope we can shape our city into what we want it to be. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here tonight, Holly. That was the last person on our list for public testimony. Now, if there's anybody else in the audience who would like to come forward, so yeah, once if anybody else thinks of it, come on up.
Hello, my name is Alan Price. I go to Elm City Montessori School, and I live at 318 Elm Avenue in New Haven. Today, I'm testifying about how people need to be educated on about LGBTQ youth and how to treat them and the language we need to. And the example I'm using is my soccer team is really like homophobic and they use gay as a nickname a lot, and I find that really, like, triggering. And so I think that schools would try hard to educate people about what to say and how to treat people that identify as gay, pansexual, queer in general, and LGBTQ. Thank you for listening to me and my speech today.
So I'll say again, does anyone from the public go there? Go to you. Right back there.
So I spent a long day, I've got a backwards baseball cap like it's 1986. My name is Scott Nicole. I'm a teacher at Co-op High School. And I live at 11 Harwood Street, East Haven. Connecticut, I go by pronouns. And I just want to sort of bring to a close all the comments today, help people to speak, build off what Matt Wilcox talked a little bit about, just the threats that we're facing nationally. And we feel somewhat safe here, but we can hear from testimony of children that that's not actually their experience. And I think what we don't talk about a lot is when we're talking about statistics, we don't speak to the vacancy, the void in which the general population of the students, without having this be a full part of the culture of the school, what we are teaching the whole community of the school. If this is not foremost in the visions of the school, if this are not what we're teaching kids, or if we're teaching them that leadership is exceptionalism and all these skills and moving on to better things, but it's not about what we do for each other in our communities, then are we educating the whole person? Are we educating the whole person? So with this lack of support, full-throated support, monetary support, if it's not first and foremost, if we don't care the most about our most vulnerable children, what are we teaching all the rest of the children in the spaces in which they share? So this is on us. It's a moral obligation that we do this. Thank you.
Red hat. It's cold outside.
I don't remember it this but I memorized it. My name is Leora Price, and I identify as transgender and pansexual. I am a student at City Montessori School, and live at 318 Avenue, West Virginia. I'm testifying today about bullying in like a bunch of different places from LGBTQ youth, and an experience. I've had a lot of experiences with bullying, but the one that I want to share today is two people in my cabin in during the Boy Scout camp out were telling me that I had to leave because I didn't belong anywhere because of my identity, and I didn't like it. And then when I didn't, they just started like trying to like forcefully get me out, and so I just told them to go. And that's one thing that can happen, like people telling other people that they don't belong because of their identities, and that's it. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Alex Lopes. I'm a senior at High School Community. My foster mom had talked earlier. I wasn't going to talk today because I really wanted to hear those around me, but I decided to talk today because growing up in the foster care system, there's a lot of pushback on identity, and because of that, a lot of people at home aren't accepted. And so I really feel that schools should be a safe space where people can feel safe to be who they are and feel safe to explore who they are. We've had a lot of problems at my school with gender neutral bathrooms. We haven't really been able to access ours because other students have been missing using it. So at this point, in order to create a safe bathroom for LGBTQ students or students who just don't feel safe using them because our bathroom stalls in both the female and male bathrooms are broken, the cracks are too wide, people are falling into each other, just hanging out in the bathrooms. And what we've had to resort to do is that I've come up with this temporary solution, which I shouldn't have had to. But now there are special passes where people can ask for so that they are able to use the gender neutral bathroom, but they still have to go to an administrator for a key. I feel like there should be a better solution for that. A solution that I was trying to come up with that fell through, which I think should happen in every school, not just mine, is that in my school is very small, less than 300 students. And so, meaning most schools have multiple floors. So what I think is for those who are like, I want female and male bathrooms, cool, that's great. I totally understand that, have that. But we have 2 floors, 2 sets of bathrooms. I think at least on one of the floors, the wall should be knocked down between the 2 bathrooms, and it should become one big bathroom, with not individual stalls, but individual bathrooms with doors that like completely close for full privacy. And have like an open area with sinks and stuff, and like different areas, and just a space that's open and that other people and that everyone can use without having to request a key, without having to go to an adult, without having to semi out themselves, just to be able to use a bathroom. Thank you.
Do we have anyone in the public wishing to testify tonight? And for a second time, do we have anyone else in the public wishing to testify? And the third time, do we have anyone else in the public wishing to testify? Seeing none, a motion from my vice chair.
Here, make a motion or a move that we adjourn.
Yeah, that we.
Move that we close the meeting.
Second. And before we go to closing the public portion of the hearing, I want to just ask if we could all give a round of applause for all the youth who came out tonight to really inspiring and emotional, and we feel the urgency of your stories, and we hear you, we value you, and we're committed to fighting. So thank you for being here, and thank you also to all the organizers, and parents, and students, administrators, and teachers for being here as well, and for all your advocacy and everything you do in our community. So now, all those in favor of closing the public portion of the hearing, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Public portion of the hearing is closed. Another motion.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, moving second, all in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Oh, my note is